She was only 19 when a quiet guitarist looked across a crowded train carriage and asked if she'd marry him. She laughed, said no, she already had a boyfriend. 10 days later, she broke up with the boyfriend and said yes to dinner instead. That moment felt like the start of a fairy tale. But fairy tales can turn into nightmares, and at 80 years old, she finally told the world which of her two legendary marriages hurt the most. And the answer isn't what anyone thought. Imagine growing up never feeling safe. A little girl shuffled from country to country, boarding school to boarding school, while wars raged outside and marriages crumbled inside. One day she came home for holidays and discovered, without warning, that her parents no longer lived together. No one had bothered to tell her. A year later, her mother pulled up to the school gates with a stranger in the passenger seat. "Meet your new dad," she said, as if it were that simple. Violent uprisings tore through the streets where she played. Nuns told her the only future worth having was catching a husband. She hid fashion magazines under her blanket and dreamed of a different life. By 17, she was washing hair in a fancy London salon for pennies, staring at women who had everything she didn't. Then a client looked at her face and said, "You should be in front of the camera, not behind the sink." She took the chance. Within months, she was on magazine covers, setting trends with her wide eyes and fringe, turning mini-skirts and thick eyeliner into a revolution. London in the swinging 60s spun around her like a kaleidoscope. Music, color, freedom. And right in the center of it, the quiet guitarist fell hopelessly in love. They married young. The world adored them. He wrote what many still call the most beautiful love song ever written and let everyone believe it was for her. For a while, life felt enchy. Anted, private planes, Indian ashrams, parties with the most famous faces on earth. But slowly the light dimmed. He grew distant, lost in meditation and other women. Fans screamed outside their gates and sent her hate mail for daring to breathe the same air as their idol. He asked her to give up the career she'd fought for. She tried to be the perfect wife, but perfection wasn't enough. Then came the letter. No signature, just a secret nickname and words that burned. "Do you still love him?" She thought it was a prank until the phone rang and a different famous voice begged her to leave her husband. His best friend. The same man who'd been in their home 1,000 times, laughing over dinner while quietly breaking inside because he wanted what wasn't his. If this story is already twisting your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that even the most glamorous lives can hide unbearable pain. Sharing is how we remind each other we're not alone. Years of chaos followed. Affairs on both sides. A confrontation settled not with fists, but with guitars. Two men pouring agony into strings because words had failed them. She finally walked away from the first marriage believing the second would heal her. On paper it looked romantic, the best friend marrying the woman he'd loved in silence for a decade, the ex-husband even attending the wedding with a smile. People called it rock and roll's greatest love triangle resolved. It wasn't resolved. It was just beginning. Behind closed doors, the drinking started early and ended late. Guitars smashed against walls. Screams echoed through a mansion that should have felt like home. Some nights she locked the bedroom door and prayed he'd pass out before he reached her. Bruises bloomed under long sleeves. She spent years and small fortunes on painful fertility treatments, injecting herself with hope while he fathered children with other women in secret, children he hid from her until tabloids forced the truth into the open. When she begged for honesty, he laughed and told the world on camera that he'd simply taken what belonged to him, whether she wanted it or not. She stayed far longer than anyone should have. Stayed until the little boy he had with someone else fell from a New York high-rise and shattered what was left of both their hearts. Stayed until she realized the man who'd once written desperate love letters saw her not as a person, but as a prize stolen from another man. She left in 1987 carrying almost nothing but scars and undeveloped film. The negatives she'd shot over decades, quiet moments of legends laughing, meditating, living, became her salvation. She printed them, exhibited them, turned memories into art and pain into purpose. Galleries filled with people who only knew the fairy tale version and finally heard the truth. Auctions sold her past for millions. every penny going to women who'd lived versions of her nightmare. Therapy cost thousands and took years. She learned she'd spent 2 marriages trying to be small enough to be loved by men who only loved the idea of her. She learned that real love doesn't demand silence. At 71, she married again, this time a kind, steady man who'd waited patiently since the storm. No headlines, no love songs, just peace in a quiet house with dogs and gardens and a husband who wakes up every morning glad she's there. At 80, she was asked the question everyone wanted answered, George or Eric, who broke her more? Her answer came soft and certain, George. The one who drifted away, who hurt her with indifference in other women, but who never raised a hand, who came back as a friend before he died, who wrote her genuine love letters she could still read without flinching. Eric had wanted her so fiercely he destroyed her. George had simply stopped wanting her at all. One crushed her spirit, the other crushed her body and soul. She said, George was my true love. Sometimes the quiet betrayals cut deeper than the loudest violence, because they make you question whether you were ever really seen. Her life is hers now. Cameras, gardens, a gentle husband, and the knowledge that surviving is its own triumph. She no longer opens boxes full of old hurt. She's given them away so someone else can learn from them. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that even the brightest spotlights can hide the darkest corners, please hit like, subscribe, and share it. Share it with someone who thinks they have to stay. Share it with someone who needs permission to leave the past in the past and walk into quieter, truer love. Because every woman deserves a life that doesn't require bruises to prove it was real.